blonde hair, and a cape. And no, actually not a cape. We had the Da Vinci
Bird
wings.
wings, right? Da Vinci
yes,
wings, yeah.
It was actually Bill who said, let's get rid of the stiff wings, let's get rid of the bright colors, let's hide him a little better, let's make him look like a bat. And hence we got to the grays and the blacks and the blues. We got the cowl, we got the cape that's scalloped that make it look like wings when he's leaping from those buildings and going after all those villains. And we got the gloves from him and so much more. We got the backstory, the name Bruce Wayne, Gotham City. We got every kind of bat motif that you could possibly think of. One of his signature things were the oversized props.
Oversized what?
Props.
Like what?
Like the big penny.
Like the big pens, and the big pennies, and the oversized typewriter, and things like that.
I didn't know that. Interesting.
That was his signature. Actually, they used some of that in one of the TV shows, one of the episodes. And actually, Bill Finger was one of the first comic book writers who actually wrote for TV for his own character.
Wow.
So,
Which TV?
for the Batman TV series in the 60s.
With Adam West?
What show is it?
Yes.
Adam West.
Redundancy is redundant.
You know what series? That was the episode, not series.
Episode.
It was a two-part series episode for the series Clock King that he specifically wrote for that. And he came up with the character based on another character for the Clock King. So he has done a lot. He came up with the backstory of Martha and his dad. I can't think of his dad's name right now. Being murdered in the alley by a hood and leaving poor Bruce there to deal with his parents dying in front of him, and taking on the role as vigilante of this will not happen to anybody else. So really, my grandfather created pretty much the mythos that we love today. Not
The
only
entire mythos he created.
that, pretty much.
But
I mean,
meanwhile,
without the
who gets
writer.
credit? Bob Kane. One name, one man. And if you watch the episode of the series Gotham, is it true that neither man is given credit?
Nobody's giving credit.
WTF, people!
No credit is given to
WTF.
anybody except for DC Comics.
Nice.
The whole dimension of
Yes.
the world.
Was there even DC Comics around when this started?
No, it wasn't called
It was just a
DC
brand.
Comics at the time. It was called National.
Exactly.
So, well, before it was Detective Comics, it was National. And then, in the process of starting building up more with the Batman, he had been around for a year when National had approached Bob to come up with another character that was similar to Batman, to Superman rather, and came up with a Bat-Man and called my grandfather and said, let's do something about it. So that's where Bill came in and came in with all of the main ideas. So, any other?
Well, let me ask you this. There was a recent case with Jack Kirby, wasn't it?
Yes, the Kirby case.
What happened with the Kirby case?
The Kirby case was about work for hire, which they're claiming that Bill Finger was. And he has now settled before they went to the Supreme Court,
Right.
and saying that he does have credit, he will be mentioned.
Yes.
And of course, there is some money attached to that's undisclosed.
So who here knows Jack Kirby? What is Jack Kirby famous for? Mr. Gonzo?
Great artist and writer.
Yeah, great
Yes.
artist and writer. I mean, really,
Yes. And,
he sort of created Marvel and some.
Mentioned his creative
with
minds
Stan
in the
Lee.
true
Yes.
comic book.
Yeah, I mean, Stan Lee and him, that's it, right? Ditko.
Well, it's similar stories that happen on both sides of those two companies. You know, business was so different then than it is now. Now everybody is more like, where's my slice of the pie? And I had a hand in this, and just wasn't like that then. And so, especially being a young Jewish writer, right after World War II, the beginning of World War II and after World War II, he really just wanted to write, and he felt very fortunate that he had the job. So he didn't really understand the longevity of the character that
No,
he
how could you?
created. But again, nobody ever thought that Superman and the Flash and all these other
Yeah.
great characters that
Miss
we
Finger,
love
didn't,
were gonna last 75 plus years.
Miss Finger, didn't your grandfather have his hand in some other characters that we might all know and love?
He did create Wildcat, which didn't last very long with
Oh,
Erwin
wow,
Haynes.
okay, we've heard of him.
He also did write for Superman. He came up with what's her name,
Laura Lang.
Laura Lang.
Lana
Yes, I want to call her
Lana
Lois
Lang.
Lane, but it's not Lois.
Right, it's not Lois Lane.
Right.
Lana Lang.
He did write for Marvel a little bit. He did write for other TV shows.
But didn't he create another character that we all know? A superhero?
Oh, the Green Lantern.
The
yes.
Green Lantern, ladies
Oh,
and
geez.
gentlemen.
I can't keep it straight sometimes. Yes.
The Green Lantern and
which,
Batman.
Actually, the
Where would
Green-
this Comic-Con be without those characters?
I don't know. The Green Lantern that you know today is not really Bill Finger's Green Lantern.
No.
It's been recreated many years after he came up with the character. But, I mean, he did originally come up with the concept and did all of the original writing for the first scripts. So, I mean, he really did. He was a pioneer in the comic book writing. And, you know, to this day, he is known as one of the best.
Mm.
So, without him, you wouldn't really have a lot of the comics that we have now. With the influences
Batman
that
has
we have.
the best rogues gallery besides maybe Spider-Man as far as villains go.
Yeah.
What you think?
Yeah, that's true.
Come. What is your opinions, people? Don't you
Any
think?
questions?
Batman has some of the best rogues gallery of villains. The Joker,
Joker's
Catwoman,
Catwoman.
Penguin, Riddler. I mean, come on, the list
The
goes
list
on.
goes on and on and on. How many characters or villains do you think Bill came up with or had his finger on?
Dozen.
7.
Of that, a little more maybe. Some of the big ones, definitely the Joker, 'cause he came up with the original script for Joker. He also came up with the first Catwoman story.
Gotta love the writers, people.
I mean, he came up with so much of the backstories that we love that have grown into the characters that we have today. And without his imagination and his dedication to his writing, because he was meticulous. I mean, he was known for being late because he wanted every detail to be perfect. Now, as an artist, I can completely understand because it's never perfect. Ever. Even after you hand it in or try to
Right.
sell it,
Always
it
edited.
is not perfect. We
I
can
have
always tweak it a little more.
until you make so much art. I can say this till you get to the point where you just say, "That's art. That's art. That's art. That's art. That's art."
Well, I don't think he ever
The-
learned
the
that
un-
lesson because even the
The
very
bad
last
parts
script that he
are
handed
my
in
bad
was
art.
late.
Still art.
The very last script that he handed in before he passed away was a story about puppets that were actually like Dracula and Wolverine, Wolfman, and they were actually live marionettes.
Really?
And they would do, a marionette show, but after the show, the strings came off, and that's when they would come and actually interact. And
Really?
yeah, it was for one of
We
the
can do that again.
different
Five Nights at Freddy's,
story
anyone?
strips that they had going on during that time. And actually, he passed away the day after he handed in that script.
Oh my.
And he actually had a story that was due on Monday.
Ah!
That was late. That never got completed.
Interesting.
So,
What was the show that they did with all marionettes? It was something from that time. That
I believe so.
You mean Thunder?
Thunderbird.
Thunderbirds.
Thunderbirds.
Yeah,
Thunderbirds.
fabulous Thunderbirds. Yeah.
Right. So.
Yeah.
I mean, he didn't just
The
work
Thunderbirds
for
are go.
our superheroes. He did pulp writing. He got into all kinds of different kinds of characters while he was writing. He really enjoyed his craft. He took it to heart, but unfortunately, he was not appreciated the way he should have been in.
So what are we gonna do about it, Athena?
Make it happen, Cap.
Well, talking about it and having you here, listening to the story,
That helps.
Googling
Spread the word.
about
Spread
it,
the
learning
word,
about
people.
it, tweeting about it.
I hear
Facebooking.
documentary on Channel 39.
Woo!
Let the truth ring free from valley to valley, from hill to hill.
Yeah.
Are there any
Huzzah.
questions?
Questions,
I'm kinda just
comments,
rambling up
concerns,
here.
insults?
Answers are.
My mother dresses me funny.
Yes.
Did he? You said he wrote for the Batman television show. Did he write for any other television show, or just for the Batman show?
He did. He wrote for Sunset 66. I think it's the name of the show. He did a couple other ones. He also wrote for movies. He did The Green Slime and a couple other ones. The Green Slime is the most famous one that he did work on. He did write it. Huh? Yeah, but that really is the most famous movie that he worked on because it is a cult film.
Exciting, isn't it?
But he did work on a couple others other than just that. He really had his hand in everything. He really was, you know, not a Renaissance man in his field. I mean, nobody really crossed those boundaries. You either were writing for comics and you were looked down upon because you wrote for comics, or you wrote for TV, or you wrote for movies. Nobody really crossed the boundaries until, you know, he really got out there and said, no, I want to try a little of everything. It's what you do when you're in your craft. You try to explore a little more and push those boundaries a little more. So he really tried to do that, even though he wasn't really
Sounds familiar.
recognized for it.
It just
There we
seems
go.
it seems like that's the same way we're working now, though.
Yeah, it's true.
We're in a community.
Yes.
We're in a community that we all work together. And he must have been in to just working with different projects with different people, which ones would hit.
It's that,
You know?
and also he really needed the work. I mean, when it
Right.
got later into,
Right.
you know, into the 60s, it was really hard for him to get work.
Yeah.
And they started to phase out all of the original writers from the 30s and the 40s because they wanted more benefits. They wanted to actually be recognized as employees of the companies that they had been writing for. And so once they started demanding more from the companies is when they started phasing out all of the original writers. So they weren't appreciated for what the talent that they brought into the medium at all. They really were not appreciated.